Hello and welcome. 5-0 unrated. Okay.
Game started.
Game on. First game of the night. McKnights is here. So the good news is, I think the voice is definitely better. And the extra good news is, last Saturday, I was able to get the COVID shot. The J&J one shot does it all. And I was very fortunate, no side effects. So, definitely feeling better. And Chess Scholar's here. By the way, Chess Scholar, can you cut and paste the link for your broadcast? Okay. And I had the pleasure earlier today of being on Chess Scholar's show and brought back a lot of old memories. And I think hopefully we provided some good tips for, aspiring young players looking to improve. Okay. Now, the f3 pawn does support e4, but it also potentially weakens the king side, and it does take away the f3 square from the white knight. So, Matthew, can you cut and paste your link in the message so that people can check out your broadcast? And also, Mr. McKnights is here. Good to see you guys. Just as an aside, I'm on spring break for the rest of this week and enjoying it. And so far we've been blessed with pretty good weather down here in South Florida. Okay. Looks like he's going to castle. Should we try to jam him up with bishop c5? Try to take away that castling privilege? Just for the moment. I mean, I'm sure he'll eventually get castled, but just to mess with him just a little.
Check.
Ah, the rat. Good one. He checks me, and then he will be able to free his d-pawn. As one of my college roommates used to say, nice play, Shakespeare. Now, if he takes my bishop on d7, question is how to recapture. I mean, the obvious recapture is with the knight. But the knight might be useful to challenge the d4 square in the event he goes pawn to d4 and we get one of those IQP type situations.
Server announcement.
Ah, the ubiquitous server announcement, which I was given instructions on how to fix, but clearly did not pay attention. Now that is a bit confusing, to say the least. I'm not sure why he didn't just play knight takes d4 or trade bishops first. Is there any mileage in me playing the queen checker on a5? Trying to steal a pizza? Well, one can try. I'm a big BOGO fan. Buy one, get one free. Okay, so what to do now? Is he threatening to drive my queen away from my thing? Castling feels like a good idea. Probably feels like a good idea because it is a good idea. Yeah, the knight a4, I think, was unnecessary roughness there. Cost a piece. So anyway, I got the A-OK from Chess Scholar. Says audio, everything looks okay. Well, if I go knight out, oh, I know. PP on the PP. Put pressure on the pinned piece. There you go. That wasn't hard. I almost tempted to sack that pawn with d3 just to keep that diagonal open. But we'll see what happens. Whoa! I said something about keeping that diagonal open, and bam! The old tricky French en passant rule. And now, just motor straight ahead and see what happens. Okay, maybe a little bit of penalty here for keeping the king in the center of the board. A little more PP on the PP there. Put pressure on the pinned piece. I did not make that up.
Check. Check.
There were other ways, but this looked exciting and inviting. And see how the bishop keeps him from escaping f2. Now we get this guy with check. Oh boy, if we just had a rook, if our knight wasn't on c6, that would just be the bee's knees. But you know what? We can just go back and threaten mate in one. There you go. In the words of that famous philosopher, Danish Grandmaster Bent Larsen, it is not illegal to threaten mate in one. So, Matthew or McKnights, are you guys up for a game? Maybe play a few games and then, oh, is it time to hit him with some deflecciones? Ron, that is horrid Spanish. I'm not even sure that qualifies as Spanish. Well, let's see. Offer him a little bishop. Oh, what was I thinking? That's not checkmate, you dummy. Yeah, I could go grab a rook.
Check.
Oh, well. Fortunately, we are playing with house money. For some reason, I thought that was checkmate. For some reason, being because I'm asleep at the switch. Okay, anyway, get back to pinning another piece. Very mundane. Now, there's some tricks, like rook e2, queen f1 check, king c2, but then knight d4 check. Okay, there's no queen e8 mate. We got bishop f8 or double coverage there. Not looking to trade queens, looking to take advantage of that king in the center. But probably time will be the key factor here. Yeah, I think that flag is going to fall.
White coming forfeit challenge time.
Okay, Mr. McKnights is here to cause me some trouble.
Game started.
Good to see you, buddy. Now, Mr. McKnights has his own chess stream, usually in the evenings, and plays pretty much on all platforms. And he plays to checkmate. Okay, that might be TMI. Maybe I shouldn't be telling him all the information. But he definitely plays a good style of aggressive chess. Now, what's he trying to do to me there? Well, he is keeping me from playing d5, obviously. Thinking what to do if he goes queen d2. If he goes queen d2, he's got two ideas. One is bishop h6. Very clever. So instead, he plays a slightly more clever queen to c1. This type of configuration. Fascinating. Yes, in the words of the great Dr. Spock, fascinating. It's a little bit of a cat-mouse game here. And there you have it. The big da-dum. Wow. Got a lot of pieces aimed at my king side there. Now, one idea in the closed Sicilian sometimes is you actually play knight to f5. But keep in mind, he could kick me. Hey, I've been kicked before. Could play d5, go that way. And we could also spend the rest of the day thinking about it. Not a great idea. What to do? Let's go for this one. Okay, now let's go for this one. Now, do we go all in? We go there, he goes there, we go there, he goes there. Why am I having trouble thinking what to do here? Let's let him worry about all this, and let's just play here. I kind of changed my mind in midstream there. Okay. Now that his knight can't go to e4, we're going to try this. Although, one has to wonder. Wonder, 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 do. Okay. Again, a bit risky how we're doing this, but ooh, if I go there, because there's some nasty tricks awaiting me. Probably nasty tricks awaiting me no matter what, so. Okay, I feel like this is getting a little expensive for him. Let's take. Good question there would be, why I didn't take with the queen and leave that knight there. But okay. Time. Let's think. Okay, so he's going to have some play no matter what. Being very greedy there. Oh, wow. Can't believe he did throw in knight f5 there. Looked like a reasonable idea. Need to get this a8 rook and c8 bishop in the game. Okay, there I thought I should take this. Oh, whew. For a minute there I had a heart attack thinking knight f6 check led to mate. It leads to check, but fortunately I got the queen coming back. That was close. Okay, caught up on time. Okay. He's going to do whatever he can to try and get closer. Let's try to kill some of these knights before he kills me. That doesn't look like it's helping much. A little tit for tat. If he goes desperado, queen takes rook, of course I play queen takes rook check and pick up the knight on e4. So I think, or just simply bishop takes queen. I mean rook takes queen, bishop takes e4. Anyway, I'm something up here. Like an exchange and a couple pawns, I think. Yeah. Getting harder for him to hide his queen. Okay, good. He's running short, very short on time. That's good. Okay, well we got to take this. Okay, and check is not mate. Oh, what is this guy? Hold on.
White resigns.
Okay. Good game as usual, sir. And chess scholar. You up for a game, dude? Or should I move on to rook endgames for a brief period? Anyway, thank you, Mr. McKnights, for a game. His Twitch channel is, I believe it's just twitch.tv/McKnights. And you can see him most evenings. Playing various players, and just a guy trying to get better, you know, like all of us. So I guess for the moment we'll go ahead and /open, close it for challenges, and take a look at a couple of very nice, what I think are very nice rook endgames. So for this, we go to view, we go to my profile. I think first we got to close that. So we go to view, go to my profile. Let's see, I guess it's down here. There we go. Now there's, as mentioned, our list of games from the previous, in fact, there you see the last two games that we played this evening. Okay. And a feature that I really like here is the game library, which I'm told holds up to 400 games. So tonight, I think we went a little bit out of sequence last night, and I have a note here to myself. We're going to start with number 32. Number 32 is white to play. So you can see the rooks up here on h8 and b8 are staring at each other. Now, if white just simply trades rook on b8, this pawn on a3 is pretty frisky. And that's going to cause him a little bit of grief. And there's also an h-pawn. So it would be extremely difficult to imagine white winning that. So the key here is that you take advantage of the black king being in the corner. And as I always tell my kiddies at school, bad things happen in the endgame to kings on the edge of the board or in the corner. And what are some of those bad things? Well, on the back rank, sometimes pawns queen with check, but also mating nets. If you think about it logically, a king in the corner, the attacker only has to cover 4 squares. A lot easier than a king out in the middle of the board. So this is an excellent example. White plays the very nice move, king to c7. That puts a double attack on the b8 rook, and when he tries to flee, notice that if he'd taken the rook, you had rook a6 mate. Then probably you just take the rook. And now, as usual in these in-game studies, the losing side has that unstoppable pawn that's about to promote. However, simple tactics.
Check.
Rook check, lure the king back, and
checkmate.
Back in the mating net. So very simple, but a very useful technique. I think I saw there was a game, Nona Gaprindashvili. In the 60s, she was like the #1 woman player in the world and women's world champion from Georgia. And she won a nice game where she used this king mating net type idea. So it does come up. Okay, let's take a look at the next game. I think we can close that one, come back to the list. Let's look at number 33. This is from a recent game, Magnus Carlsen versus Jeffrey Chong. I believe it was a London opening. Okay, and I think Jeffrey here in this double rook in game just played rook to f3. Now, one of the things we talked about before on the show, what are the differences between a single rook in game and a double rook in game? A double rook in game gives the attacking side possibilities, A, for mating net, B, possibilities to exchange one pair of rooks into what he knows is a advantageous, possibly winning single rook in game. Okay, so here's a nice case in point about the first thought, the mating net. Magnus, playing white, plays pawn to g5, sealing the doom, threatening rook to h4, checkmate. So Jeffrey plays rook a h3, and then bam, rook down, and black resigns. Fedorowicz calls this, with these double g pawns, having your king up the chimney. And you can see Magnus uses his pawn to totally wall him in and set up the 2-rook mating net. I believe that was a rapid game played like in the last year or so. Let's see. That was 30. Let's go for 33. And by the way, earlier today I was honored to be a guest on Chess Scholar's show, and maybe he can type the URL in so that people can check it out. And one of the things we did talk about was rook in games, and how the rook in game in game 6 of the 2013 match helped Magnus Carlsen become world champion. Now this one is simply amazing. This is a composition by well-known German composer Richter. And let's see, black has 2 pawns up, but the rook on a4 is sad. Very, very boxed in. So, any thoughts, guys, as to how white could go about winning this seemingly improbable endgame? So, the title gives a clue. Talk about walling in. Once we start with the solution, you'll recognize that the theme is very similar to a very famous pawn in game or two that you may have seen. First, you play the amazing move, rook to c6. Now we got a little unsolicited background music coming in off the river. So I'm always amazed by rook moves that purposely put themselves where pawns or bishops on diagonals can eat them. So, but the point of the rook move is you're cutting the king off. So basically black only has moves with the d pawn. So he takes it. There are other variations where you can go d6 or d5. Now you go king d4. Now again, you see the black king is boxed in. With the king boxed in, the rook is boxed in. The b5, a5, and a3 pawns are all immobile. So, pawn check, only move. Now you go king back to d3. No, king to d5, my bad. Why wouldn't king d3 work? That's another question. He goes pawn to c4. Now you go king back to d4, and we have an amazing zugzwang, where black loses only because he has to make a move. If black did not have to make a move, he would not lose. Now, interestingly enough, zugzwang, for example, in games like shogi, are considered a win for the stronger side. And so, his only move is the c-pawn, sadly enough, and
checkmate.
Pawn takes pawn is checkmate. I mean, it always amazes me that people have time, energy, and effort to think up such things. Okay? So that's called the walling in technique, where you wall in one king or another. Let's see. So that was 34. Now we're going to look at 35. This one is pretty amazing. I saw this one in Chess Kid. Okay. And so it's white to play and win. Now the problem here is technically, isn't the corner the same as having on the edge twice? I guess the corner could be considered being on two edges. McKnights is also saying he hasn't streamed in 2 weeks. Some PC issues. Sounds like you need some contributors to chip in there, buddy. Okay. Let's see. So, this is amazing. Pawn is going up the board. But if you push the pawn, you'll probably play a move like, I don't know, maybe c5. And when you move the rook, let's see, what would he do if you push the pawn? Oh, now if you push the pawn to b7, he'll play king to c6. That's the ticket. Then when you move your rook, he'll just simply take your pawn. And meanwhile, his rook cuts your king off from coming to 8. So, amazing resource. You play
check.
Rook to d8 check, kind of semi-skewering his king and queen. He takes it. Then you push the pawn. Now notice, the white king is placed where it covers the b4 square, so the rook cannot come to b4. But black has a counter idea. If he just starts checking, like rook d3 check, the white king will simply run up the board to a7 and eventually promote to a pawn. But black has tricks too. He plays rook b4, giving back the rook. When you take, then he goes pawn to c5 check. Now, if you play king takes pawn, he goes king to c7, he eliminates that pawn, and we all know king versus rook pawn with the king in front, king in the corner, easy draw. Okay? Like, not even a question. So if white wants to play to win, he's got to go up there and hold on to his pawn. But now, king up, threatening to steal the pawn. Now white can still bail out and take a draw with king takes c5, but white presses forward with king to a6. With king to a6, he's threatening king a7. Black king has to stop the pawn. White king plays king b6, clearing a path for his own pawn. Black pawn runs. White pawn takes advantage of 2 moves on the first move rule. Push, 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 and black queen's first. And white shows that pawns have big dreams too, and it's a beautiful 2-pawn checkmate just in the nick of time. Amazing. Absolutely fantastic play. Yes, I like that one very much. And the very first move, rook d8. This shows real vision to give away the rook. And then when he takes it, then push the pawn. And then the fact that black has this counter idea.
Check.
But then you win this position by one simple tempo.
Checkmate.
Beautiful. Okay, who said endgames are boring? Who is that guy? Okay, so that's number 30. Now we're going to look at something called mating net. This one also was on Chess Kid, and I quite liked it. Let's see. Black is 2 pawns ahead, but his king is in the center. And so what does white do? Any ideas, guys, about how white could possibly win this one? Well, you sacrifice another pawn. But of course. So he takes it. Now you hit him with the knight check. He only has one move. Now you didn't hit him with the knight check to play knight takes rook, and then rook takes pawn. He would still have a bishop and 2 pawns for the rook, which if anything, black would have the winning chances. But instead, you play a little quiet move, rook to d1. Rook to d1 threatens rook up to d5, checkmate. That's the threat. Well, logically enough, black plays pawn to c6. And now for the sweet finish. You play rook to d5 check anyway. And when he takes, now you toss in the knight, check. He must take that, and then the last pawn on the board.
Checkmate.
Checkmate. The black king is entombed by his own pieces. Absolutely amazing. So technically that was not a rook endgame. That was more like a rook and knight versus rook and bishop endgame. But I thought the checkmate finish was just so fantastic. So, let's see, I guess we'll do one more, and then we will get back to trying to play some games. Let's see. What else we got there? That was the mating net. Okay, here's a little puzzle that I made, kind of borrowing a theme. And this is pretty simple, but very useful. The first thing the experienced eye notices when they look at this is that the rook on d3, the black rook on d3, does not have a great deal of mobility. So this is a very, mini domination theme. So to take advantage of that, you play king to c2. Now you notice the rook actually has no moves. So the king, the black king, needs to move away. He goes back to e4. Now, if he'd gone king to f3, you'd simply take his rook, he takes your rook, you go king d4, you pluck the pawn, and it's off to the races. So, he goes king d4. Now you go rook g4 check. The mission here is to pry him away from his rook. He goes king f5. Again, if he goes king f3, it would be the same. You would just take his rook. He goes king f5, attacks your rook. You take his rook. He takes your rook. You've now reached a king and pawn endgame, where you go king up, king takes pawn, and you have the extra pawn and the opposition. Easy peasy win. You simply use your king to box him out. He tries to come back around. He's one move too late, and that is that. So very simple, light, but very practical domination type theme. So what I would say is that in rook games, you always want to be looking for rooks that don't have a great deal of mobility, because then they're oftentimes subject to being skewered or trapped. So that's pretty much it for the rook games for the day. And I think we will get back to, let's see, back to our window, my boards, get a new game board. Let's open back up for challenges. Okay, it says we are now accepting match request. So, Chess Scholar, it's your turn. You haven't played yet. Because McKnight's, he'll play me all day. Him and Coach Connor, they will play me all day. They love to play. And Coach Connor definitely working at getting better. Okay, I guess we'll go fishing in the pool, see who's out there, see what we can drag in. Okay, let's hold our breath.
Game started.
Wow, that was quick. Mark Hebden? No, you got to be kidding. Is this seriously GM Mark Hebden? Oh my goodness. Oh, why didn't I go Bishop G5? Ah. Oh well. I'm not sure about Bishop C4 and Bishop F4. Actually, I am sure about it. I'm unduly unimpressed. Mark, for those of you not familiar, is a very well-known British Grandmaster. Okay, highly respected. Used to win a lot of games on the British Grand Prix Tour. And he has very aggressive, a nice aggressive attacking style, I would say. And he's already doing quite well in this game. Got various possibilities here. Feel like white is already hoping for equality. Not too thrilled with this, I must say. Good question, how to recapture. I'm playing right now, sorry. Definitely feel like a little bit worse here. Totally not thrilled with this. Ah, that's a blunder. No, it's okay for the moment. But please be careful. This is dangerous. Not happy. Not happy at all. This is not good.
Draw offered. Check.
Come into my parlor, said the spider to the fly. He's in. What are we going to do now? Why didn't I play bishop c5? And then he gives e6, and then rook b7. Okay, at least we got a passed pawn, but what the heck. Push it. Nope, can't give him that one. Cannot give him that one.
Check. Check. Check.
Walter Brown used to say something like, you can't dance at all the parties. Maybe king c4 there.
Check. 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 Black coming forfeits on time.
Oh, Mark. Oh, tough game, dude. As always, I did offer you a draw. Anyway, Mark is a grandmaster from back around the time and won a lot of Grand Prix events in England. He was one of the big players that made the F4 Grand Prix attack very popular. Okay, Coach Connor, round 2.
Game
buddy.
started.
Let's bring it. Let's play D4. Anyway, as far as that opening, I would say that we had less than nothing, as my former University of South Florida roommate Larry Christensen used to say. White has less than nothing. Now I'm expecting knight takes, but he may cross me up with queen takes. There, if you play e4, it's a touch early. So better just go ahead and build and try to play e4 when it has some feeling, because you have managed to trade off a less central pawn for a more central pawn. As Lev Albert would explain, in the early stages, he considered that the E and D pawns were worth $1 and the C pawns were worth maybe 80 cents. So now here's an interesting, if you go D5, there's a trick with knight E5. Knight takes E4. Pawn takes on C6, queen takes, king takes, knight F2 check, and knight takes rook. So let's just chill and say, hey, we got the center, we're going to protect it. And so anyway, Lev's thought was that the flank pawns in the early stages, that is when you were fighting for the center, only worth about 60 cents. And so I guess the knight pawns, maybe he thought were 70 cents. So I thought it was an interesting way of looking at things. And mad respect for Lev Albert. Super nice, very classy guy. And on top of that, a heck of a chess player. I think back in the 70s when he first came here, I think he won something like 3 U.S. championships. Now here, we now feel comfortable going ahead and expanding and trying to use that C6 knight, which has limited options. A, can go back home. B, knight to B4 is dubious. Probably queen A4 check should pluck a piece. Knight to A5, probably a little sketchy as well, because we could go queen A4 check, C6. Okay, so I think we had that in the miscue category, because I thought the double check, double attack
Check.
should net something. The tricky variation was knight E5. Then you have one of those queen sacks where you can try knight takes E5, bishop takes D1, bishop B5 check, something interposes. Okay, now it's going to get a little messy, but a piece is worth a little mess. So now he could go E6 or E5. It's a trick. Watch out. Discovered attack on my queen. Since I have to move my queen, let's go ahead and see if we're not going to get trapped. Let's go ahead and destroy some more of the enemy territory here. And in a strange sort of way, this does actually fight for the center, because we're trying to wipe out the C6 pawn. C takes D5 can now be met with bishop B5 check. Disrupts him, gets me a move closer to castling. Rook to B8 is a second, third, fourth, fifth pawn sacrifice. Now here the question is, are we greedy and going to play knight takes here? Pawn takes pawn on C6. The answer is no. I think, if we're not totally wacky here, can we play knight takes on E5? What the heck. Get behind in development. Development's overrated. Except when you need it. Okay. Again, in the words of the famous Bent Larson, not illegal to threaten checkmate 1. So if he goes rook to C7, then I'm thinking the logical retreat is queen back to B3. Okay, bishop E7. But now bishop E7 has its own downside. 1, we can knock out his bishop, but 2, I think we can knock this guy out. and not suffer any undue consequences. And then this will either A, force more material. Whoa, dude. Little quick on the castling there. So yeah, this is falling apart here. Has fallen, I guess. 6:56, approaching the 1 hour break, where normally I take a quick restroom break. Boy, that was a shock having Grandmaster Mark Hebden pop in from England. Wow. Okay, I can't do it. The greedy part of me wants to take that. Why not? Take it. Ron, you're a pig. That's Mr. Pig to you, sir. But I did have an idea. I thought I would just sack this back, block that up. I just figured, give some back and just reach a pretty easy, clear-cut situation. Bishop e5, dessert consideration there. When you're ahead, trade. Still on the table. And now we got e5 coming, or just keep mobilizing. Safe way to play is to play king over, rook over, something up, and start coming in. And just leave the pawn wall. The pawn wall from g2, or pawn chain, to d5 just totally kills this knight and bishop. Let's just unpin. Don't need that pawn on a7. Now with my king on b1, I'm going to be even more reluctant to play e5. Well, we got other ways we can go. We can now think about taking that pawn and pulling the bishop back to d4. Very, very stable looking. We could think about playing rook c1. So even when you're way ahead in material, you should try to play precise moves. Okay, so that's a little over the top there, because you want to be in the habit of playing precise moves. You don't want to be sloppy.
Check.
And then when you're in a more serious situation, you've become used to playing... okay. And that...
Checkmate.
Checkmate. Coach Connor says he's not... No. Definitely you played much better the first game, Mr. Connor. Coach Connor. Much better the first game, dude. That game, you ran into problems. Where was the beginning of your problems? Well, right here... When I play c4 and you protect with a piece, once I knock that out, I've got an advantage in the center no matter how you play, which is slight but definitely perceptible. And if you noticed, after just a couple more normal moves on both sides, White's opening is already a huge success. Basically, he's got 2 extra moves, and he's got the pawn duo. This is a failure, okay? From an opening point of view, for Black's point of view, you played bishop g4. So what you need to do in the future, after c4, you probably protecting this pawn with a pawn, either e6 or c6. I would highly recommend that you take a look at the Slav defense. Super solid. Played it for years. Had great results. And just play c6. That way pawn takes pawn, you play pawn takes pawn. You keep a nice strong point pawn in the center. Okay? So just a thought there. And some of my Scholastic kids, d4, they don't see it as much, and I just have them play the Slav defense. Although nowadays a lot of them run into bishop f4 and the London and all that business. So another story. Okay, I heard an incoming challenge. Coach Connor. Okay.
Game started.
And it's game on. Now f3 is a little bit dubious, as it does weaken the well, let's play this like a reverse scotch. I guess someone somewhere could tell me why I did not play bishop to c5 first. I guess he would have played bishop c4. Well, this should be interesting to see what happens here. In the Scotch game, would f6 be a good thing to have included as black or not? It depends. I mean, I guess there's certain lines where you can't go e4 so easily. So I think some of the Europeans, I don't know if they got thrown with the time change, but a like Ohanessian and Zevich seem to be missing tonight. Oh boy, oh boy. Let's just go here. Knight to f4 was an interesting idea, but believe it or not, sometimes white can play d4 in those type of situations. Sack the g2 pawn, you take the pawn with check, you feel excited, they go king over, and then you move the knight back. Although in this case it's probably better than in analogous situations. So black's okay here. He's got 3 pieces out, white has 2. Each side has moved a pawn. So there, we could definitely say lost the tempo on the play. And yeah, I could castle. He gives me double pawns. Not thrilled with it. So in this case, since I don't see any danger, why not just go ahead and not let him give me double pawns? He doesn't really have any other pressure on my center. And you know, I could think about knight d4, castles. Knight f4 is still, you know, on the table. Chess Scholar, you hanging in there? Now, Matthew, could you put your URL there for your stream in the chat so that people can check you out? Okay, d3. Okay, now knight f4 is quasi off the table. If I want to kick his knight, f5, now would be the time, but I don't know that I really want to do that. Although actually it's not a bad idea. I could do it, then go knight d4, trade those guys, why not? Live a little. Okay, that is confusing indeed, sir. I have 2 attackers on it. There's a Chess Kid video on counting. You always have to count the number of attackers and defenders. So in this case, I had 2 attackers on the square, you had 1 defender. So okay, so let's see. sure if Chess Scholar is going to edit the show we did earlier and then post it, because he does have the unedited footage now, but so I don't want to, offer that out unless, in case he maybe wants a chance to edit first. And sometimes, it's just some little cleanups, people coughing, background noise, stuff. Nothing too major, no real change in the content. But it's just nice to tidy up. It makes for a better viewer experience, I think. Okay, I'm going to castle. Knight e3 was clearly a tasty option, but I wanted to see if he would castle. And now knight e3 is extra tasty, because we have a checkmate threat on g2, and we attack
server
the queen.
Announcement.
A little bit sneaky on my part, but so he saved the queen. Now, of course, we do have knight takes c2 with a fork, but of course, queen takes
checkmate.
Helper checkmate. Okay. So f3, that weakens your diagonal and takes away the best square for the knight. Okay. And then later, of course, you're doing. Now here you played bishop c4, but then you spent another tempo to play bishop b5, and I played bishop d7. So in terms of time, you move this knight twice, you move this bishop twice, and I've been allowed to develop 4 pieces, and you still got 2 guys on the back row, even though you played white. So something has clearly gone awry here in the development department. Okay. And then here, just terrible miscue, simply not counting the number of units attacking the g5 square. Otherwise, probably knight back to g3 would make sense. Even knight to c3 to fight against this knight, or knight to f2. All of those moves would make a fair amount of sense. Okay. So yeah, bishop g5, that was just a bad mistake, because I just simply took, and I got a BOGO, 2 for the price of 1. Okay. And the game was ostensibly over. Mr. McKnights, are you ready? You ready for another game, sir? I mean, after all, you said you might not have your show tonight, so got to help me out here, buddy. And besides,
incoming challenge.
Coach Connor again. Okay.
Game started.
Okay. Now we're going to make this more interesting. We're going to play the Bong Cloud. We saw Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura play this. I'll probably get punished severely for it, as I deserve. But we'll see. Okay, defend that. King e3, that would probably be pushing the envelope like way much. Now I may wind up having to play the f3 move that I was telling him not to play. Well, we'll see what happens. See what happens. See if we can survive. Good move. Just simply development. Good, smart play. Now, what am I going to do? Don't really want to open the position, but how am I going to get my stuff out? Whoa, knight d5. Set myself up for the, what's the name of that checkmate? Oh, the one with colors reversed where they go knight d4 and all that. Okay, so at least I stole a pawn. Now I just have to survive. easier said than done. Okay. He does not want me to survive. I get that. Why aren't I playing c3 just to keep his knight a little bit under control? Well, I had an idea here that's probably not very good at all, but...
Check.
Okay, good check. Yep. That's a good one. You got to remember, castling is verboten. His dark squared bishop is going to be a force to be reckoned with in this game. Well, let's kick that guy. That guy's a little deep, a little at home in my territory there. Oh, thank God we got rid of that guy. Okay, now what? Let's go here. I'm totally not sure where my king belongs in this whole business. Where does my king go? If I go that way, he'll attack that way. If I go this way, he can attack this way. King safety is an issue here. I don't like that move at all. Oh, why didn't I go there? Okay. Maybe next move. Maybe, baby. Oh! He's trying to trade my baby. Can't blame him for that. Okay. Okay, somehow I have I think a reasonable looking position. I really want him to trade his bishop for my knight. Okay, touching me here. Had a game like this once, where as white, I got the guy to play a3 and then I went queen b3. That would look annoying. Here, I need to do this. Okay, so now here I was at least hoping I could get the square. Nothing's hanging. Okay, so now it's reasonable. Okay, which way to take? Let's get rid of this weakness here. Open the file, since we're contesting the file. And now he's got the isolated pawn on e5. A little short on time. So now we can start doubling the rooks. Now I feel okay here. h5 deserved attention there. But this seems okay too.
Black forfeits on time.
Okay, good game there, sir. Yeah, I saw Hikaru Nakamura and Magnus Carlsen actually played that in a tournament recently, where neither one of them needed to win. Their places were already set. I was surprised Nakamura repeated with black, but I guess that was a way of making a draw. Anyway, yeah, you had some initiative. You did a pretty good job there for quite a long time, building it up. Somewhere you lost a pawn, though. But you're playing quite okay for quite a while there. Okay. Now, I was actually saving the Bong Cloud for my buddy, Jason, who sent me the game. But so far, he has not showed up. So, but do not recommend you try that at home. Because after king e2, of course, you lose all castling privileges. And king safety becomes a concern for the rest of the game. Okay. Mr. McKnights, one last game for the road, buddy? Okay. Let's go see what the fish can drag in. Dare I? I think we got enough time. Let's see who's out there. Do, 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 do. I'm in the pool. Oh, looks like Coach Connor's left for the day. Okay. So here we're going to look at another one of my favorite features, which is practice and improve, and checkmate, for example, with two bishops.
Game started.
Okay. Step number 1, organize the bishops. And here you need to think of like making a triangle, okay? What would be the best? Well, if I go there, he can attack me. Let's just go here. Now we can make the triangle a bit smaller. So step 2 actually is bringing your king to your bishops, and then step 3 is usually pushing him to the edge of the board. So here we've done the first 3 steps. We organized our bishops. Think in terms of a triangle forming an electric fence. We got our king connected up with our bishops. Now, once you push him to the edge of the board, okay, got to be careful here. for example, that move would be stalemate. Bad idea. We could now pick a corner. Okay, so where are we going to send him? We're going to send him to the A1 corner. Okay, and then we check.
Check.
See how we use our bishops like little
Check.
shepherds, like little shepherd dogs. Now this is the tricky moment. If you just go king over, he goes, or wait, is that true? No, my bishop's in position. Sometimes you have to play bishop d5 in these situations. Here we're okay. We got our bishop on f3. Now do not stalemate. Simply get this in position. When he pops out,
Check.
ding, bang.
Checkmate.
Now let's take a look and see. We did it in 18 moves. Supposed to be able to do it in 15 moves. So there is a slightly more efficient way to do it if you're a 3000 rated computer. But the main thing is we have a process. That's the main thing. Let's see what else we got. Action, practice and improve. And what else? This one is a bit tricky. Bishop and knight is very frustrating. That takes about 35 moves. Rook versus knight is also very tricky. Queen versus rook is interesting. It's supposed to be a win in about 40 moves. But queen versus knight is actually
Game
surprisingly
started.
tricky. First thing you got to do, you got to separate that queen from the knight. I mean that king and knight. How do you do that? Well, right now we can go ahead and just approach with our king. But you got to be very careful of knight forks. For example, king d4, bam, knight e2. Instant equality with a knight fork. Okay. Now you also have to be careful which side you approach from. Let's go this way.
Check.
See? Now we can go here. Okay. Now, let's check him.
Check.
Now we can go this way. Make sure we're
Check.
not getting forked. Then we
Check.
bring the king. My experience here, I've never read anything on this or studied it in depth, is that the king approaches from the other side. And that's how you gradually push him back. So, let's say, for example,
Check.
we could check here. Now, when we check here
Check.
on f3, notice again we can approach. We've pushed him. We didn't allow him to block with the knight. Okay, so I'm thinking we can go here.
Check.
And then we approach. We could go this way. Make sure we're not getting in
Check.
trouble. And then we can go this way. Now, if we go king f5, where will the knight go? Sometimes you can make a little waiting move. How's queen g2 looking? He'll probably go back. I'm thinking, oh, tricky, tricky. If we go queen g2, he goes back, and we go king to f5, then he has knight h4 check. Now, if we go here, we threaten checkmate. He's going to have to do a knight check. Looks like he will have to move his knight away. That looks good. No knight fork. He can't play knight takes king on h4.
Check.
That looks good. So this is success. We've driven the knight away from the king. And notice how our queen dominates a lot of squares. This knight, how are we going to trap this rascal? Oh, easy peasy. The king on g7 covers h6. And he's only got 3 squares. Once that knight's on the edge of the board, he's got a lot fewer squares. And, oh, one last trap. Oh, how cute. If we take with the king, it's stalemate. Oh, isn't that adorable? So, of course, we're going to take this way. And then we get a chance to use our superb king and queen checkmate technique. Just box the king in. Here, I like this move. Queen d2, put him on the back rank. King comes to f3, checkmate, game over. And in your face,
Checkmate.
So we did it in 25 moves. Just out of curiosity, what was the recommended expected number of moves? Let's see what it says. 15! That means could have saved 10 moves. But we got the job done. Or is that the king and knight versus queen? Oh, 17. So apparently there is a way to do it 8 moves quicker, but I'm happy with the job we did. We got it done. So unless anyone else wants to play, I guess we will call it a night, call it a bishop. Let's see, my boards, new game board. Oh, Dave the Champ, good. You got time for the last game? Last call for alcohol? Oh, that's at the bar. Dave the Champ, you got time for one game, dude? Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. So, I've been good. Everything's well. So anyway, I'd like to thank ICC for sponsoring our podcast. We're every Wednesday, Thursday that is, Eastern Standard Time, 6 to 7:30ish. And also I'd like to thank McKnight's and Chess Scholar for providing a lot of guidance. And Internet Chess Club also says thank all you guys for showing up. And we will see you next week. Thank you very much.